My wife recently returned back from a trip from Ireland, and she brought back a whole bunch of incredible reference photos for me, and that's what I'm going to be painting from today. I'm going to show you exactly how I paint this Irish landscape scene. You're going to want to stay tuned till the end of this video, because I'm going to talk about the Instagram comment that actually made my painting better. And as I always do in my paintings, I lay out my drawing first, and then I wet down the back of my paper and the front of my paper. And that's important specifically in this scene because I'm going to spend a lot of time working on the sky, and there's a lot of wet and wet painting that I want to do. So by dampening the paper, it really gives me more time before that paper dries to work wet and wet. Now what I'm doing here first is laying in the lightest parts of the painting, all the lightest values around the scene. I typically start with the very brightest part of the painting and work my way from there, and that's what I'm doing here as well. The bits of the house that are catching the light, that's what I'm laying in first. And what I'm going to do next is dampen the sky and lay in the color of the wispy clouds that are in the sky. And I'm going to come back and paint around those clouds and define them in a little bit, but I wanted to do that first because the paper needs to sit for just a couple minutes till it's started to dry just a touch before I come back in. So watercolor timing is always important, but it really comes into play a lot when you're painting skies. And what I'm doing here is laying in some light values. You'll notice in the reference photo that the light is catching the sand and the water in the distance. There's a nice blend of cool colors and warm colors there. And I'm also laying in some light color for the hill. Now that is obviously not the final value for the hill. It will need to be much stronger than that. But by laying that in now at this point, it gives me a lot of options when I get into the next phase of my painting. I can paint around some of those areas and leave a little bit of that light behind if that is what I want to do in the next phase of my painting. Now that the paper has sat for just a little bit after I've added that color up in the sky, now it's time to paint around those wispy clouds there. And I'm using a mixture of cerulean and cobalt blue and a little bit of lavender for this color of the sky. So I'm hitting kind of at the wispy clouds over here in the corner, and now I'm going to continue to work my way down the painting. And now the paper is still damp. I'm adding in some stronger value for the soft horizon in the distance. It needs to be stronger than the sky, but I do want it to be soft, and that's why I'm laying it in now while the paper is still damp. And that's it for the sky. I'm going to go ahead and move down to the rest of the scene. Now there's a lot of light hitting this field, and I want to use some vibrant green. So my mixture for green is pretty simple. I use Daniel Smith paints, and it's Cobalt Turquoise mixed with raw sienna. That makes a nice olive color green. And then if I want it to be more saturated, I add in some cadmium yellow. If I want it to be cooler, I can add in some cobalt blue or other colors like that. I want that field down here to have a nice glowing feel to it. So I'm adding in a little bit more cadmium yellow into that green. And you'll notice I left a few little white bits of the paper. I'm going to hint at some sheep down in this field, and you don't need much detail at all. If you have some highlights with a little bit of shadow underneath it, which I'll add later, that really gives the illusion of some sheep grazing in a field. And I'm adding the cooler colors and some of the earth tones of the road and the driveway and some of the shadow side of the building and things that are down here. And my paper is still damp, but it is dry enough that I can get this hard edge right here. If you remember, I didn't avoid getting this part of the house wet when I was using a sponge on my paper. I went over the whole thing. But since I painted that first and let it sit for a while and worked on the sky and eventually came back to it, now it's dry enough where I can leave that hard edge. So watercolor timing can be tricky, and the more that you practice, the more you'll get a feel for things like that. When you need to wait a little bit, when you can go back in. But that does take time to develop that sense of timing. Adding some green for this tree here, and there's a road and a fence along here. I'm using some raw umber and some lavender to create those colors. And I went back in and added a little bit more saturation. That wasn't quite what I wanted. So I just strengthened that up a little bit and added some green here in the foreground. This is something important. So the paper is still damp, and I'm taking a smaller synthetic brush. So, and I get questions about that. I'm using a smaller synthetic brush because it doesn't hold as much water as a natural hair brush. And I'm loading up some cerulean and some Cobalt Blue. The paper is still damp. I can still work back into this area and not get hard edges. So that's what I'm doing here with this smaller brush. All right, and I added a little bit more blue, some vibrancy for that bit of the water that's behind the house. And that is the first wash of the painting. So we have the sky done, we have all the light values of the scene done. And now I'm gonna let the paper dry and we'll come back in and think about that large connected middle value shape. After my paper has dried, I'm ready to start painting the middle values of the scene. I'm gonna start with that area of land that's behind this building here. And I'm working my way from left to right, painting the shape of this hill. And like I mentioned before, by leaving this color underneath it in the first wash, it gives me a lot of options when I'm painting my second wash. If there's little bits of the green that I want to leave behind, I can. If I want to cover it all up, I can. But it's good to leave yourself some options because a lot of this painting is going to come together as we are painting it. We might not know exactly how it's going to look, but I like to give myself options as I work through the scene. And I can work back into that hill while it's damp, dropping some cooler colors and giving it a little bit more definition in some areas. And I'm going to connect that bit of hill into the roof of this building here. It's a subtle connection, but there is a value connection between the edge of this and then when you get into the house. And it's a little thing, but what that does is it just unifies the painting a little bit more. Instead of a lot of little bits around the painting that are separated, we want to look for how we can connect them and make that big shape that I'm always talking about. And I'm connecting the shadow of the house right into some of the darks and middle values here. Working my way around there, right into the roof of this house, right into the value of the closer up tree here that we see a little bit of the edge, and then into the darks and middle values of this path, this road. All right, here is a look at the middle value shape. So we started over here on the left, we worked our way up into the hill, connected that into the house, and then found those connections here. I'm ready to get into the darks and the details. And this is an exciting part of the painting process because we finally get to see all of our hard work pay off. The light values, the middle values, and finally the darks. And that's when we get a look at the full range of values and the light becomes very apparent in the scene. So I'm trying to not get too caught up in details. I try to suggest a lot of things as I'm always talking about. And into the fence. And this is an important part of the process as well. This seemed a little bit light to me. And so I'm taking some more green and I'm going to add some texture here and then move into kind of the middle ground of the painting and see what that part needs. And when you add this little bit of texture here in the foreground, it really does pull that area forward and lets the rest of the painting feel further back. And it can be tricky. Once you start adding in texture, you really have to be disciplined because you want to do it all over the painting. And so being cautious during that part, not to overwork your painting is really important. Okay, so one tricky part of the scene was including these power poles here. There's one here and there's one here. And so to do that, I'm turning my paper sideways and carefully painting those poles because I don't want them, I want to paint them as fresh as I can. And so if you turn the paper sideways, you can get a little bit more natural of a brush stroke, and that can help you paint straight lines. And I'm putting the little shadow under the sheep that I was telling you about earlier. And I always think it's amazing that when you get that little bit of detail in, how it actually does make a difference. You suggest that there are some animals in the field, you have some light value, put a little bit of shadow underneath it, and that's all you really need. And now I'm using a little bit of gouache. Gouache is great because if there are little highlights that I just can't paint around, I can get some nice little touches of light back with some gouache, and that becomes important here. The side of this chimney was just a too small of a part to be able to paint around and keep. Using gouache in that way can be very effective in getting back some light for these little touches. I'm also going to put a little dash back here. In the photograph, you can see some waves crashing. Well, I want that included in my painting, but to try to paint around something like that would just be crazy. And so exactly what gouache is good for. Little fence posts catching the light, things like that. Breaking up dark areas, adding a little bit more interest. Getting the light side of the pole was helpful as well. And I think eventually I'll get to that little mark I was talking. There we go. Little bits of broken waves out there. Okay, here is a look at the painting when I felt like it was done. I went ahead, called the painting good, posted it on Instagram like I always do, and then I got the comment, I get an interesting optical illusion with this one. The foreground barn flips perspective and gets a green roof. Anyone else? And someone else chimed in and said, yes, I got that too. But then I took another look at my painting. I had inadvertently created a tangent in my painting. And I've talked about tangents before. It's when there are two shapes or lines or some element of your scene where they line up and it creates some relationship between them that you didn't intend. And so right here, look, I have this fence line coming in and it hits right at the top of the barn. And I know that's a problem. It's something I think about when I am painting and coming up with my composition, but I just didn't see it. I was too invested in the scene. And maybe if I had waited a little bit to post this painting, give it a day, come back and look at it, I would have seen that. And so I was able to make some changes and I'm much happier with the painting. Let me show you what those changes were. So I added in a few more darks to create some separation here. And then I went over with some burnt sienna and put a little bit warmer wash on the top of this roof, which actually ended up being a nice thing because it pulled this area of the painting forward. It gave me a little bit more color, a little bit more saturation in that area, and it separated the fence from the front of this barn. And the end result, I think, is better than the original. Here's the original, and here is the one that I fixed. I hope that this demonstration was helpful for you today, not only in how to paint this scene, but how to also fix a tangent if that is something that happens in your painting. There's probably a bigger lesson there about taking some time before you post your paintings to distance yourself and come back to it with some fresh eyes. So keep on practicing and working at it, and I'll see you next time. Have you ever been really excited about a painting and you get all set up, you find that right reference that you're excited about, and then it's time to go and you feel lost? You ever had that experience? Well, I have a free resource that I want to give to you today that can help with these problems. My 5 steps to plan a successful watercolor painting. I walk you through the crucial planning phase of your painting that will help you understand what you're going to paint first, second, and third. The planning is really so important, especially in watercolor. This medium is harder to correct. It's so immediate. So having that plan is very important. I send you a PDF that you can download. And the great thing about this is you can have it on your phone, you could print it out, and you can take a look at these crucial planning steps before you start each painting. All you have to do is follow this link here and download my 5-step guide to planning a successful watercolor painting.